recording started and we'll get going. All right. Well, thank you for being here, everyone, and welcome. This is the Food Co-op Initiative COVIDeo series, and this is presentation number 14 in the series, and we are going to be focusing on outreach today. And today we are going to be going in depth on a peer presentation. I'm just going to do a little housekeeping with y'all before we get started. As soon as it decides to actually go to presentation mode, Jay keeps telling me it's trying to do. All right, so there you go. All right, so this is Smart Outreach. This is the session I hope you're planning on being in today. We're expecting about 40 people. It's gonna be quite a full run. Housekeeping real quick, if you can be on video, we love when you do that. It does help the speaker to see who's speaking, helps us connect to each other's peers in a deeper way. If not, that's okay. Please do mute when you're not speaking because there's a lot of us on here and it can affect sound. This call is being recorded. This is a video recorded, so please do keep that in mind with what you choose to share. If there's stuff you need to talk about that you don't want on a recording that will be available to the public, just keep that in mind and maybe talk to me after the presentation. For check-ins, let me check if I can get my chat up. So far, who I know is in the room is Silverton Food Co-op, Wild Onion Market, Purple Carrot Market, Mad River Market, Prairie Food Co-op, Bay City Food Co-op, Pullman Good Food, Grand Rapids Food Co-op, Chicago Market, Clipper City Food Co-op, Village of Williamsville Co-op, and it's not pulling up my chat. Who am I missing? Let's see, there we go. Westchester is with us. Yay. Paso Food Co-op from Paso Robles, California. Excellent. Common Share from Amherst, Massachusetts. Cedar Falls is with us. Andrew Scoggin, Dorchester Food Co-op, Assabet Village Co-op Market. A lot of people are here. All right. Suncoast as well. And Suncoast is presenting very soon, this Thursday. We'll get around to that at the end. We'll talk about that. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and jump in. So real quick, today we're gonna try and stay on the topic. You guys are usually awesome about this, but part of keeping that focus is we have 40 people in the room. So please use the chat to put your questions, thoughts you wanna share, or to say, wave, you know, if you say waving, I'll know that means you'd actually like to speak, or any other way you want that, because you can unmute and speak. Just put that in the chat that you'd like to, so we know that, so we don't, because if we just let everyone talk whenever they feel like it, we're just gonna have a bunch of voices all over each other, and then Jerry's not gonna understand what anyone said and be able to answer you. So just let us know your question in the chat or that you're waving, and we'll make time for you to stop and talk. Is anyone on the call today who is only here via phone or audio? Okay, that was me counting to 10 to make sure you got to unmute. Okay, so we don't have anyone here who's just on audio. Great. So I will ask you to put all your questions and everything in the chat, and we will integrate them into the conversation. We may or may not get to all of them. If there's any that we miss, we will go back and comb the chat and make sure we follow up with you. All right, let's jump into our topic. So today's speaker is Jerry Nash, the co-founder and outreach coordinator for Prairie Food Co-op in Lombard, Illinois. These are just some images from his terrific co-op. If you've been to Up and Coming, the national conference, Jerry has presented there numerous times about his outreach work. And we are very honored that he agreed to come and be part of this again today. And why I asked Jerry to do it is because he came to our Friday download, which is in the 4:30 Central Time on Fridays, where you can just come and chat, talk about what you've been thinking about, what your challenges are, just connect with peers in a very low-key way. And what emerged from that was Jerry talking about how right now he is very focused on creating outreach that is high quality and that runs itself as much as possible, low capacity, because people have too much on their plates, both in their bandwidth to pay attention and the team's ability to do stuff in the middle of this national crisis. And I just loved hearing that. Not surprising to hear it from Jerry, who is a very strategic thinker. But it's something I think we could all really learn from, is how he thought through in this process for his co-op, and his team thought through, how do we continue to create meaningful outreach and do it in a way that is not going to drown us while we're dealing with everything else in our lives right now. And so we asked Jerry to talk about his philosophy on that and to present what his team has come up with that meets his criteria that he has set for how the kind of outreach they're going to do right now. So I'm very excited to have him here. And welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I hope everybody here can hear me. I was just upstairs and it told me my internet was unstable up there, so I ran down here. So I hope this goes smoothly. Thank you for the introduction. I'll just add that, yeah, I'm the outreach and ownership coordinator. I may say O&O from time to time over this. That refers to ownership and outreach. I just call it the OO. And we're at 1,084 owners as of today. And yeah, we're in Lombard, which is a suburb that's just west of the city of Chicago. And yeah, we've been doing this for about 8 years. It's been a lot of fun, but oh yeah, we're probably, just to let you know where we are too, we're in stage 2B, and probably the biggest thing we were gearing up for was to actually sign our lease before the world went to sleep. And basically we're waiting for our developers and the city to kind of finalize things. And then also, of course, gearing up for our CIP, which is our community investment program. So that's where we were, but then of course all of this hit. And you know, we kind of had to reevaluate where we are right now. And yeah, so 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, when all this kind of slowly started becoming a reality, it was slowly unfolding. I personally felt pretty frozen, concerned, worried, anxious. You know, I couldn't really do a lot at the time. I kind of did very minimal for the co-op itself. You know, our Facebook presence was pretty minimal. Maybe I could get out a post a day. And frankly, I just personally couldn't pretend that everything was okay. That was where I was 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'm a little better now.
How did you start to emerge from that? What were your first, I mean, because I think a lot of people were there, you know, we were just dealing with shock, but as someone, you know, who's a leader at your co-op and in charge of outreach, how did you start to emerge from that moment, and what were you thinking?
Yeah, well, it kind of was baby steps, just, you know, making sure our social presence didn't completely fall off a cliff, doing as much, you know, frankly, minimal thing, you know, like maybe posting about, you know, where to get masks or where to donate masks, more like PSA messaging at that point, stuff that I could post and get out there, because I thought, at least at that point, that was valuable. But also it kind of started with maybe reaching out to members of the outreach and ownership, the OO, and just having personal conversations with them, seeing how they are, seeing if it kind of matched up with my experience, seeing what they were going through. And that kind of started to give me a feel for the capacity that we could commit to.
Excellent. And I want to take a minute to point to that, something that Jerry's talking about that has come up again and again, and we use different language, but that especially in times like this, that great outreach equals that it's meaningful outreach and it's sustainable. And that's the one a lot of startups miss. And so that in normal times, is it meaningful? Does it really hit at our core values? Is it filling a need in our community that isn't already being met? And is that outreach sustainable? Do we actually have the people to do it? Does it cost too much? Is it taking too much of our energy? Or is it reasonable to the amount of resources that we have? And that can change depending on what's going on very rapidly from time to time, what's going on in your development. There might be times that, you know, you go through a change, like announcing a site, and the outreach needs to change pretty significantly, to times like this of crisis where capacity very suddenly changes. And so that was that thing I latched onto that you said, Jerry, that just was like, oh, so good to hear this, that one of the first things you thought through was your entire co-op's capacity. And if you guys watched our pause and assess video, the very first one we did, we talked about pause, you know, and assess all the work you're doing and what priority it really needs to go in and what's possible right now. This word keeps emerging, and it hasn't been from me. I've heard it from you guys, and I think it's apt, of capacity. What do we have capacity to do? So can you talk to us for a minute about how you started to really assess the capacity of your overall organization under the new normal.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you just laid out, I started thinking like, well, obviously we can't do much. If you look at our O&O agenda for like the previous month, everything just had red lines to it: cancel, cancel, cancel. And like I said, so many of us were going through so many different things. Maybe somebody's spouse job is on the line, or one of our O members, Stephanie, she's a nurse, so she got crazy busy. Other people maybe have their own small business that they can't really attend to right now. So what I thought is like, what can we do? What can we all do from our houses? And they all have their own different details to attend to. But yeah, what can we do where every step of the way we can maximize it to where it takes care of itself? And what can we put on a website? What can we, how can we interact with people? Maybe I can talk more about that in the virtual farmers market part, but it also considering what capacity we have in our messaging, because everything you take on is going to have its own, it's going to need its own space to be messaged properly. Like if you take on 5 or 7 things, you always got to consider all of those things need to be talked about in your newsletter, on your Facebook. And you only have 2-3 posts to make on Facebook. You only want to put your newsletter out every maybe 3-4 weeks. So you got to consider that as well.
That's interesting to me. So one of the things you mentioned was it's in your notes and you talked about earlier, is that in assessing capacity, you started with the whole co-op team, and the whole co-op organizing team had to realize that everyone's capacity was shifting and changing, and some people's might be increasing a bit, but a lot of people's were decreasing, and what that meant for your co-op, what that means for your overall project. But then I loved how you moved the capacity question into messaging. So I'd like to linger here for a minute, because you really talked about seeing it as a marriage of, I don't know if I use space, bandwidth, but there's only so many vehicles for putting out your message, and so many times people will pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. And that's a different kind of capacity that's specific to outreach and to messaging. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, well, I think I've become pretty good at, say if we're at an O&O meeting and, maybe we're talking about something or somebody else comes up with an idea, I immediately start thinking, well, what's that going to take? What work's going to be needed to do it right? And yeah, messaging, where can we fit it in our message? Like, or, one idea that's a pretty simple idea could add so many dimensions of messaging if we add just like one little thing. Like, oh, well, let's make it a contest. Well, if we make it a contest now, that's so much more overhead and so much more messaging that's going to have to be attended to. So to me, honestly, it's just come with a lot of experience doing this.
But I love that question that you ask yourself, and I don't think we all do. It's like, here's this little thing, and it sounds so simple and so fun. What's the impact going to be? What's the cascade of work? Which I think, like you said, you figured out with time, but I want to make sure we linger there for people hear that. We did have a question real quick. People are asking, so how many active members of your O&O team did you have before this started, and what that look like now? Like, how has capacity changed?
Well, we had 6 just up until now. We had a very cherished and valued O&O member. She moved to North Carolina, and she's still keeping involved actually, and she's actually going to be more involved with CIP, things like that. But so we lost her recently. So then we were pretty much down to 5. And yeah, I'll 2 of those 5, like Stephanie, she used to be a stay-at-home. She became a nurse recently, as well as other changes in her life. And so her capacity right now, and even before all of this, has been greatly reduced. And another member, she's really heavily involved with the CIP. So, they're still attending O&O meetings, contributing when they can, but really it's come down to basically 3 of us, me, Beth, and Crystal, kind of over these last couple weeks, really talking a lot on the phone, you know, hashing details out. And, you know, that almost kind of makes sense right now because even though we've had our oh no meetings virtually, all of this, to me, a lot of this is stuff you kind of nurture a little. So phone calls to me are much more valuable than like, you know, a lot of emails, texts, meetings. Just phone calls can accomplish so much more in a quick amount of time.
Excellent. And I think that's, so I think a lot of people ask that question. I think when they hear O&O team, they're thinking team. And I think that Prairie, like every other startup, occasionally you go through, you know, phases where that team is quite robust, outreach or whatever you guys call that committee. But often the team is working with 2, 3 solid people, maybe a couple others who can do a thing or two. And so you were already kind of in that situation when this hit. You guys were kind of, you know, needing to maybe rebuild a little capacity, and then this happened. And so it sounds like that really helped you to think about quality. So I'd like to move us to that. Like you said, like there's only so much capacity in people's bandwidth to pay attention. We can only send out so many Facebook posts and so many Instagram posts and so many newsletters, and we don't have a lot of other ways to be in contact with folks. So we want to make sure the messages we pick are what we really want to get across. But talk to me about quality then and why that's so important to you.
Yeah, well, over the years doing this, you know, we've tried so many things, and you know, a lot of them work. You know, some don't. Obviously, people who've done this know that. And you know, you have to have a good attitude about it. And with to me, the attitude that you can try certain things if they sound like a good idea. Sometimes you just gotta abandon them if they don't work. But something I have liked about us over the years is that we tend to, if something's working for us, we always make it better. And you know, you have, to me, yeah.
All
I
right.
think over the last few years, I've gotten to a place where maybe, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like your intuition about something's going to work a little bit better than others is a little more fine tuned. So in this case, frankly, we had an oh-no meeting just before, like literally it was like the Tuesday before the Friday or Saturday that everything got shut down. And we even then did it virtually because we saw the writing on the wall. But if you look then, that was a much bigger and more populated agenda. But my point was we were discussing a lot of different ideas, and those pretty much got filtered into a few that we pursued. And so you compare that agenda to our last meeting is just like 4 or 5 topics. And yeah, basically we asked ourselves, one, what's the relevance of these? Because we are in a spot where what we wanted to do pretty pointedly. We didn't want to have to, you know, we're not doing events, we're not going to be at a market, we're not doing this. So what can we do? What can we do well? You know, I would rather just do a few things very well right now instead of having a grab bag of a bunch of different things we're trying to attend to. And we also put like a little filter on ourselves and ask ourselves, whatever we should do, it should be helpful and valuable to people right now.
Yes, I love that. And I want to say to some of you though who haven't been doing outreach as long as Jerry has or is an experience with it, if you've tried a bunch of little different things because you're still trying to get your feet on messaging, that doesn't mean you can't still boil down to a couple things that are really working for you. Jerry and his team have been doing this for a long time, so I think we're able to ask themselves those questions up front about, you know, is this message core to who we are? Can we do it with quality? Do we have capacity? So if you are kind of a little all over the place right now, that's okay. You can still boil down in the process. But I think that Prairie's example of how they did that is really valuable. And so I want to jump into, Michelle asked if you'd be willing to share a recent agenda for your committee, and if we could share one of those when we send out everything today, just to get a feel for what you guys talk about.
Oh, of course. You know, that was one last thing I wanted to attend to. I wanted to get you just a sample of our agenda.
All right. And just what I'm going to do is I create a Google folder where the recording everything goes. I'll get you linked to it right away after the call, Jerry, and you can add stuff that you want to put there. That would be great. Okay, so we'll get that to you, Michelle. So, and welcome to Sola and Long Beach. I saw you guys kind of come in after we got started. Hello. So I'm going to let you tell us all about what you guys did pick as meaningful, reasonable outreach. There's never anyone in my street now. There's a fire truck, sorry. But I'd like to, I think some of it's intuitive for you, and I'd like to kind of unveil your thinking. So I'm going to show them the first thing you guys picked. Here, let me get to it won't let me see the chat and move slides at the same time. Here we go, which was your Prairie Food Co-op Virtual Farmers Market. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about just what it is, and then I'm going to pull you back to talking a little bit kind of how you guys picked it, and then we'll go into the details of how you do it. But can you just tell us a little bit about this program, what it is?
Well, basically, it's a registry of local farmers, artisans, small food producers, small businesses, that basically you would see us carrying their products at our store, or you might see them at a farmer's market. So that's pretty much it. It's just them listing, you know, their business name, their information, what they sell, you know, a few other details. And one thing I added at the last, like anything else you'd like to list about your business. So they could choose if they wanted to list, you know, like a COVID special they're doing right now, or just anything that they thought's maybe more relevant right now than just what they sell.
Okay, great. So my first question is for you, thinking through that process you and your team went through to decide what to do. Why is this something that you guys picked as highly relevant to your community's needs and to your mission? Let's start there.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, this kind of evolved, like I said, from that first O&O meeting we had in, you know, the middle of March almost. You know, I think I was thinking, basically, what is a way maybe we could encourage people to support their, you know, because you saw a lot of restaurants closing down, you know, you saw a lot of businesses closing down. And around here, we actually are proud to have a lot of our restaurants. They're also PFC owners. We know a lot of these people personally. We've done lots of partnering, promotion with them. We've actually done our props program, which is Prairie Ownership Perks, where we partnered with a lot of businesses where they get discounts, et cetera. And so my first thought kind of went to that, like, you know what, let's talk about these businesses that are also owners of Prairie Food Co-op and encourage people to support them, which, you know, I still think is a valid way to go. But, you know, and this happens all the time in outreach. I created a web page for that. I created the newsletter for that. I probably even created the Facebook post for that. But then just at the last minute, it just didn't feel right to me. And maybe that's because one day to another feels different. And then it kind of evolved to me. It's like that. It feels a little bit not the right time to be doing like just support people who support us. It's more to me, I looked at our mission statement that kind of informed me. And it, to me, that really was, it's like a light bulb moment where I realized pretty quickly that's the best thing to do. Let's create a registry and encourage people to support their local farmers, food artists, and small businesses, you know, who are going to need a lot of help, especially with market season coming up. You know, I do believe in Illinois right now, I think they're still considering doing markets. You know, depends on which town, but even I imagine even if they do the markets, they're not going to have the attendance that they used to. So anyway, just following our mission statement pretty much got us to where we thought it should be.
Okay, terrific. And then I'm going to say, so of course, local food, local business, very central for you guys. When it comes to capacity, you know, this needs to be both meaningful, we just talked about that, and sustainable. What's sustainable to each startup food co-op can be very different depending on what talents you have available to you, maybe businesses who've offered to do things. You know, who's on the committee, it can be very, very different. So as we start to go into how there's capacity for this at Prairie Food Co-op. This is a good capacity choice. It's a very sustainable choice for them. It might not be for you. And Jerry actually pointed this out in a pre-conversation he and I had about this session, that he's like, well, this stuff is all stuff I knew how to do and could do, and I have all this programming, knowledge of our website, and so I could just throw this together. That might not be the case for others. So what I want to point out is, just because we're labeling this as both meaningful and sustainable, it's a meaningful, sustainable program for Prairie Food Co-op. Your job will be to assess what is meaningful and sustainable for your co-op based on the resources you have. But that said now, so this may not be a sustainable choice for you based on the talents and time necessary to do it. But based on Prairie's background, experience, it is. And so I want to turn to that and say, so what did you assess this was going to take, and did you felt like you had those talents and capacities internally, or how did you decide this was going to be a sustainable choice for you guys?
Yeah, that took a couple days. I'm a type of person, I realize I turn things over in my head for a little bit of time before I can actually see them moving forward. And yeah, it just kind of slowly came to me. It's like, well, yeah, we could do a spreadsheet, but I don't want to be entering all this information on a spreadsheet. I don't have time for that. Oh, well, we could automate it. We could you can link a Google form to populate a spreadsheet. And then it just became, well, okay, do I know how to insert a spreadsheet into a web page? And frankly, off the top of my head, I don't, but I just have enough IT experience to know that how to go into something, look at the code, figure out where you need to put something. So I could do that. So, and then frankly, I went down a rabbit hole of formatting the Google Sheet, connecting it to the doc. Kind of a wild journey of self-discovery. But after a couple days, I pretty much got it in order. And then let me scroll down just to check my notes, make sure I'm not getting too off track. Yeah, it just became a lot of little details. And yeah, I realized I could do this. It took a lot of, like I said, a couple days of sweat. There was a lot of upfront work for it, but I knew that once I got it right, it could be pretty autopilot from there.
And this is what pretty much runs itself. And I think this actually leads to Kelly's question. Kelly from Silverton had a question for you. I think about how farmers participate in this. So I'm going to let her unmute and share her question. Kelly?
There we go. Thank you. Hey, I'm not doing video today because I need a haircut.
All right.
I have no makeup on, so you're just getting my voice. So first of all, let me just say I really like that meaningful and sustainable question. I want to start incorporating that with what we do. But with regards to actual, because we're coming into our season, our farmers market season, where that's our face. We're there. We participate in 4 markets in the different communities around here, and we're not. It's just looking like we're not going to be there. So one thing that our board has requested is that if there's other vendors that need help at the farmers market, that we wear our shirts, wear our aprons, and go and help them. Excuse me, because apparently the vendors now, there's some real restrictions on participating in the outdoor farmer market, and you can't sell your produce and take the cash at the same time, so you have to have 2 people. Well, if some vendors can't do that, we're going to offer our services as being that second person to help them out. But with that, we can't always do that. And so what is our presence going to look like coming into this season? What would you recommend we do to keep our face out there, to keep our name, our brand out there as still being available to our communities?
Yeah, that's a big question. Of course, I think you have to understand what your own capacity is with your own board, your own outreach. A lot of co-ops are different how they're organized. And the first question to ask yourself is, are you taking care of yourself You know, are your O&O members, your board members, are they taking care of yourself? Because I think that's the first people you need to think of. You know, and I think it sounds awesome if anybody can go out and help farmers or food artisans, if they can. But, you know, keep in mind that, you know, can your co-op sustain that? Can you sustain that? Yeah, and I would just recommend considering what your strengths are in your ONO, or what I call ONO, or your board, and go from there. I don't know if I can answer much further.
Well, and I think it's a very telling question. Actually, I'll be surprised. I actually hadn't heard, Kelly, that anyone's going to be able to have farmers markets for sure yet this year. And I admit, Illinois has been extremely cautious and probably will continue to be, and some states are reacting differently. I know I had friends posting photos of themselves in masks at farmers markets 2 weeks after we were locked down in North Carolina. So I was like, whoa, so maybe you guys will. But a lot of people won't be there. And I think so maybe this is a good time to pivot, Jerry, to what's going on with this. So first off, part of capacity that I think is genius about this, I'm not sure I got across, is you've got farmers and producers actually filling this out themselves, correct?
Yeah.
And how's participation been?
It's been pretty good. I think if you look at it, I think we've got 20 to 30 vendors on there. You know, basically, I knew that would be a lot of work for one person, 3 people, 5 people. Oh, you know, just combing through registries, figuring out, going, that we could not sustain. So what I did is basically send out an email to our board and O&O, asking them to pick 3 to 5 vendors they can think of. And basically email them, contact them, and send them the form with a description of what this was. Send them the form, send them the link to it so they could see it. And that turned out pretty well, really. I also emailed the Faith in Place up here. I'm not sure if you know, but there's Faith in Place winter markets, where they're a faith-based organization that basically organizes all these indoor farmers markets in the winter around the Chicagoland area. We have a pretty strong relationship with them. So I emailed them and asked them if they'd be willing to share their vendor list so we could email them too. And then I emailed our kind of local, more like private French market coordinators, business. I haven't heard from them. I think there was another aspect to that.
So you definitely seeded it. You went out and basically made sure a whole lot of people were aware they could utilize it.
Yeah, basically. And also, I didn't want to get to a position where we just ask farmers, hey, what information do you want to give? And then we plug it in. And, you know, really, if you look at the form, and I got links to it in my doc, and I just sent out a message to,
it's in the chat. Hopefully that link works. The one I sent you for some reason is asking for his permission, and it's open. It's an open doc. So hopefully that link works for y'all.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll figure that out afterwards if it's not working. But yeah, basically the Google Doc makes things really easy. It's just, they fill it in, it just populates, and there you are.
So one thing Grant's asked, and I think this is coming, so I think there's a whole other aspect to this. You've created this thing, but you're also like, you're not letting it sit there. Like, you're promoting it to your social media, farm by farm, pretty consistently. Can you talk about that, the reaction to that? And Grant asked, do you feel like you're hearing anything back from farmers that it's producing leads for them or purchases?
You know, as far as reaction, yeah, we've gotten pretty good reaction. Basically, we schedule at least 3 to 5 posts on our Facebook every week, and yeah, highlighting a different farmer every day. Even though we may vary this from time to time, I think it's a good idea that it always comes back to us, comes back to the virtual farmers market, because say you're interested in Rustic Road or Walnut Acres, well, you go and you can look for their information, but you also see other farmers, kind of like walking through a farmer's market. You'll see other vendors while you're there. And frankly, you'll see us, and we kind of want you to see us too still. As far as input from farmers, just to be honest, we haven't had the capacity to be talking to them. And frankly, in my experience, farmers don't have a lot of time to be talking to us. So, you know, we have good relationships with a few farms around here, and we talk from time to time, but we pretty much communicate with each other when maybe we partner about something or something else comes up. But
Okay, excellent. And I know there were more details you might have wanted to share about how you guys set this up and so forth. So I'm just I'll let you have the floor. Anything else you want to share with us about this particular piece of outreach you guys decided to do?
yeah, I'll say there's a fine line between how much info I wanted to share or not, because there are a lot of technical details in this that I, knew already to do or had to figure out. I just kind of wanted to go over the overview. Basically, I created a Google form first. Believe me, if you try to do the spreadsheet first, that creates a lot of issues because you want these to be connected. So you create the Google form first, and every question on the Google form is going to be a column for your spreadsheet. But you also got to be thinking somewhat of what your spreadsheet's going to look like. You don't want to have 20 columns because then it's not going to fit on your web page right. It's going to side scroll, which just feels weird. You don't want to do that. Then yeah, after you got those connected, you tested a few times, there's going to be formatting. You want it to look pretty. You're going to maybe have to hide some columns because I think when you fill out the Google Doc, it creates a timestamp. And so you can just hide that. You don't want to delete that column. Once again, it will mess up your Google Doc. Then yeah, after I formatted the Google Sheet, I created a PFC web page in Nation Builder. And then I figured out how to insert the spreadsheet into the page. And then as we kind of went over, that's when the populating step began. I emailed the board, O&O, about reaching out to farmers and having them do it. Like I said, I think most have done it. The only thing I'll say that doesn't take care of itself is when people put in new information, it doesn't text wrap, it just cuts it off. So you got to kind of like babysit it, go in every day or two and just hit text wrap all. But other than that, it's been pretty. And oh, another thing I like about it is it's easy to message because all you do is you just go in there and copy and paste, the information they put to a Facebook post, put the link to the VFM, maybe a few words, and basically just kind of writes itself, which is another way of autopilot.
I loved that. Basically, you've got instant content.
Like 20 people created 20 different posts.
Very nice. So one thing I will mention about this kind of program is a lot of you are running them. You're like, well, long term, what's the engagement level? Are people going to keep engaging with it? I have seen some of you branch into also checking in with those farmers and seeing if there's a way to get their product right now and starting to rotate some of that information through. So if you get to us some information, if you join our virtual farmers market, I've seen one startup say like they've reached out to those farms and said, hey, thanks for signing up, everyone who signed up. If there's a way to access your product right now that you want us to promote, hit us back. And they only got responses from about 10-15%, but those ones that they did, they've been rotating those posts through too. And it becomes kind of like the co-op is kind of in the know and where I can find local food with just only a little thin layer of additional effort. And I thought that was pretty cool. And that might be useful during the farmers market season for those of you who, like us and Jerry, I don't think we're going to have markets this year. So it's a possibility, but I don't want to miss the second project that I want Jerry to talk about that they decided on. Remember, again, he's looking for what's meaningful and sustainable for his co-op. And this was something that hit both of those criteria for them, which was their Ask a Chef program. A lot of you were talking about, I know Asabet has been doing some great work having some virtual online classes and getting turnout. This is another thing, virtual online, offering something that way. So talk to me, Jerry, first off, you know, this may or may not be a hit for every co-op. Why did this feel like the right fit for you guys?
First of all, I want to say, Crystal, if you want to jump in at any time, I believe Crystal's on this call. If that's
great.
okay. Well, basically, yeah, when we were talking about what we could do, once again, it's almost an evolution. I do think we talked about these things side by side, but we were also thinking about producing content like people in their kitchens with their kids cooking. But basically, I made one of those videos with my kids, and it wasn't the kids that didn't work out. It's just a lot of different angles. I don't think the audio probably worked a lot of time. Maybe not the best lighting, just choppiness all over the place. But what we liked about the Ask a Chef videos were a number of things. One of the things that kind of matched, what we thought was relevant, like I talked about before. It's relative to current events, and it's an attempt to be helpful, and it actually lined up with kind of what we were doing already. With our outreach, like a lot of events are, you know, cooking related. So we thought that was kind of, probably, you know, that was pretty self-evident we could be doing that. What we also like about it is that the production values about it, the production considerations, basically not too much moving around. Our first few were just Crystal sitting in front of her computer, you know, with her chef jacket on, and maybe Prairie Food Co-op signage in the back, stationary camera. I think she's used her phone and camera different times. The audio should be good because she's right in front of her computer. In the background should be consistent and not too distracting.
And so this is, so I like that you brought up that, like, this is, remember, this is not a big jump from Prairie's brand. Prairie has found their owners to be very responsive to things that are food prep focused, that are, you know, about how to use food. And that's not going to be true for every audience. I'm always amazed people like, oh, that will, no, not for every audience. It was definitely in Prairie. It was already working for Prairie. So I want to point out, they didn't go and pick something that they've never had success with before. They went with at least a type of offering, even if done in a different format, that already had been working for them. And so I don't know if Crystal wants to unmute for a minute and just share to us a little bit how you're picking what to share with people, and just a little bit about what you focus on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. I try to think about what is relevant for people right now. My other job is I have a business where I teach people how to cook, and so that's something that's a part of our capacity because I have those skills. And so for me, it was, this is a need because people are stuck at home. They're cooking a lot more probably than they're used to, and people are going to have questions. And so how can we help them, and how can we answer those questions, either with them asking us, hey, can you talk about this, or just kind of thinking about what skills do we want to share or talk about. And then also, how does that fit in with Prairie Food Co-op? Like, you know, we did one on salad dressings, and then we talk about we're going to sell bulk vinegars and things like that, or spices. We did one on spices. But really just kind of thinking about what's helpful, you know.
Those tie-ins have been great. I was pretty impressed by those watching the videos. I'm like, they even mentioned their future store and that they'll carry these things. That's awesome. So this is, and I love it because I think not only do people already respond to the cooking theme at your co-op, but I don't know about everyone else, I was really enjoying all the cooking at first. But I'm kind of hoping Crystal's next one is on what I can do when I'm sick to death of being in the kitchen. Like the salad dressings, thumbs up. I'm eating a lot of salad. So it feels like not only a good fit to their persona, right? But Crystal's making sure it fits, like, specifically people have got a lot of cooking needs right now that are different. And so you see Prairie Food Co-op being responsive to the moment, not just putting out some random content clearly being aware of the moment and trying to be helpful to the community. Because otherwise something like, oh, an Ask a Chef program, we're all kind of busy right now. No, this is very much toned to your needs right now. Again, trying to meet a need in the community and be relevant. So I really love that about this program. Anything either one of you want to share? And again, I love that you mentioned the word capacity, Crystal. They went from their capacity, right? So it already was meaningful to their audience, and it's sustainable because they had the capacity in Crystal. It already existed. They didn't go, well, let's just go find a chef and see if there's one who's good on camera and can do this every week. That is not what they decided to do. They went with their capacity. Other things you guys, either one of you, want to share about how this program works that people might be able to learn from?
I would just ask Chef Crystal if she'd like to talk a little bit more about her end of it, because, you know, the funny thing about this is we were talking on the phone about this, of course, but when this went live, I was at my house, she's at her house, and I didn't see a lot of what she had to do to prepare. And I will also add at this point, while we are wanting to go to more autopilot, while we want these things to be more streamlined, I do not want to minimize the work that Crystal has done for this. But so I would actually invite her to talk a little of the considerations she's had to evolve on over the last 4 videos.
So yeah, thank you. It's a lot of work, and it's also not a lot of work because it's stuff that I'm very familiar with, but this is new because I normally am a chef in the kitchen, not on a screen in front of people. And so that's been a learning curve for us, and figuring out how to do the live stuff. We actually started working with a spreadsheet, which I think you shared, Jerry, with people. But to just keep track of like the technical difficulties that we had going from the first video to the most recent video, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And because even though like tomorrow will be our 5th video, I want to say, and it was hard to keep track of like, when did we publish a video that was scheduled? When did I use this computer? Like, to have those notes, I think is helpful if anyone's considering doing anything like this, maybe not this type of specific thing, but I think this outline of doing a live series of some sort could be something that could be replicated with any topics. And so we've kind of tried to document our notes of what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's been helpful, maybe considerations of like using the horizontal view works better than the portrait for various reasons, whether or not you should use the front-facing camera on something or the rear-facing camera, and all of that is just things that we've been learning as we go. And for me, learning while I'm live in front of people, so that's been fun and somewhat stressful, but you know, we are again just trying to like evolve from every time. Like we'll have a live video, and then Jerry and I will chat and be like, okay, this is what worked, this isn't what worked. Next time we should shoot for doing this, and to just document things. And I think doing that recap right after the video is really helpful because you don't forget it. It's fresh in your mind. Then you know, if I want to work on this 3 or 4 days later, this is what I have to do because I took that extra time and had a quick phone call.
Well, and that's an outreach best practice in general. I'm going to repeat to y'all, but now hopefully you have even more time than ever to do it, which is right after you try something, get together and talk about what worked and what didn't work. I love this spreadsheet. As someone who's now trying to do recorded video, not these, I'm starting to do a series. Oh my God. I don't know why I've been keeping a spreadsheet of the tech problems, but now I'm going to, so that's a trip. But keep in mind that one of the things I do love though, is that Crystal really dove in. Like the first video, I've watched all her videos. So the last one's quality. Every time the quality is getting tighter, her confidence is getting higher, and the production's getting a little cleaner. But the team didn't wait until they had this all nailed down. They did it, and then they made sure they checked in and they learned from it and kept improving. And I'd say right now that's the way to go. I see a lot of people saying, well, maybe eventually. I'm like, don't wait for clean quality. I'm actually going to give props to this, to Rich Lairshell from Fredericksburg, who asked me to do a little series of videos that'll be starting today. And he's saying, stop trying to make them perfect. Just put them out there and learn as you go. And a lot of people don't always have the confidence to do that. I'm really impressed that you guys did, especially Crystal, who has to be in front of the camera. And then you're doing all this work to make sure you keep improving, which is really showing.
Thank you.
There was a quick question about you. Are you thinking in the future you might be able to connect some of the videos or with the local ingredients and farms that is part of the other outreach project right now?
In a word, no. So I think honestly, and I'm not trying to, but that is one of those things where I love that idea, but when I hear it, I think that's a lot of work, to be honest.
No, I love that. It's very unusual in outreach coordinators to hear that pragmatism, and it's part of why I wanted you to do this session. It's because we're all, as outreach people, we're all excellent at generating ideas. The problem is we have to be able to execute and execute well. And so I think Jerry's got a real talent for narrowing down to those things and being very clear about that. So it's part of why I wanted him to be here and talking with you today. We've only got a couple more minutes. Jerry, were there other things you were hoping to get to? Or
You know, on my notes, I just kind of like the process of promoting the AAC base. I'll just quickly go over that real quick.
Yeah.
When the live video is done, I basically plug in the information to live on our Facebook video page. Then I download the video. I upload that up to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Then from there, I link that video on our YouTube channel to a dedicated Ask a Chef PFC website.
Nice. So it's on the YouTube, it's on the website, and it's on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Excellent. And this is part of what I want to point to with Jerry's work. I think sometimes people are like, well, how are we going to get visibility? Honestly, doing something very thoroughly and with excellence and building an audience works. And so I think you guys have seen your views going up, and that's going to continue because this is a building, they're allowing themselves to build an audience by continuing to offer something consistently with excellence, making sure it's easily accessible from many different portals, that it's really their forward-facing project right now, instead of lots of little things that are kind of going on that they're trying to talk about all at once. The things they're talking about are the two programs you saw here, you know, their farmers market and their Ask a Chef program. And they're building those audiences, they're building the relevance of those programs instead of jumping around, which is one of the things I'd love to see people take away from Jerry's work here today. Any last questions, anybody, or thought for Jerry before we wrap up a little here?
I had a question about your yard signs. Are you doing anything with yard signs currently?
Yeah, you know, we've had a conversation about that. To me, those are pretty safe, you know, somebody driving around, not touching anything. But, you know, I also worried about the perception because I think some people look at shelter in place like don't leave your house unless you have to. And so I wonder about the perception of us just letting our yard sign fairy, as we call her, driving around delivering these yard signs. But to be honest, lately, in the last, I've been leaning more towards like that's something we can be doing.
You'll wait. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with you toward it being something you can do. I haven't seen anyone done it yet, but I think we should steal a page from the established co-ops. And if we're going to send out our yard sign fairies, as I'll just call them, that we take a picture of them with the signs wearing masks, or masks and gloves, and basically make clear to people that they're socially distancing and being safe, but getting out there and support and spreading the co-op love. And one other startup, somebody said to me, you're going to do soon, and I think this is taken straight from, I think this has started with you, Jerry. They are going to launch in May a yard sign competition. So as they're trying to get yard signs out right now, they're going to get people to take fun and creative pictures in their yard with their yard sign, get as silly as they want. I think that did come from Prairie, who did that a while ago. And it's a way you can utilize your signs to make people see each other, feel connected, and participate in something. But they upload their own photo, and they vote on the photos themselves on Facebook. Sustainable.
And really quick, to piggyback on that, because I've been wanting to get this in, you know, that did emanate from us, and I want to take full credit, not I personally, but as PFC, and that came from ownership member Jess Stratton. because and you know, a lot of great things that come from Crystal, and Beth is on this call. I just want to really underscore that the way I approach outreach is that I am the outreach coordinator, and I realize that I've developed somewhat of a talent for this, but I really surround myself by very talented people that I can communicate well with. So I really want that to underscore everything. Most of this is all teamwork and collaboration.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take a moment. We are going to do a little bit of wrap up so you know which sessions are coming next. So let's take a moment. Thank you to Jerry. Thank you to Beth. Thank you to Crystal for being on the call today, for all your work, being willing to share. I know Jerry's representing it. And we didn't even know Crystal was coming, so that was an awesome bonus. But thank you to your entire outreach team for really being willing to share what you're doing with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
We want to talk real quick about how, of course, the recordings will be made available today, as well as all the documents Jerry said he was willing to share. That will go into a Google folder. I'll email that out to you either late tonight or first thing tomorrow. Give me just a little time, but you'll have the video recording, the chat log, as well as all the documents that Jerry talked about sharing in there. If you registered for this event, you're going to get them automatically, so you don't have to worry about hunting them down. I will email you. Real quick, upcoming, talking to this week is all about outreach. If you're an outreach person, this is your week. Next up, Wednesday, we have back the wonderful Katie Novak from Katie Novak Cooperative Coaching. She's going to be some of our first session about how do we actually go out and promote ownership and get new ownership in the middle of this situation. A lot of people are feeling shy about promoting ownership right now, or just what language should we use? How do we do that? Katie's going to be here talking to us about it. Looking forward to that one. That's noon Wednesday. Thursday, we have our next peer presentation. The Suncoast Market team, Shannon Ratliff, specifically their outreach manager, is going to be here. They decided to do something kind of different, and I'll be interested in the sustainability question for them. But they had a local produce supplier who now, small locally owned produce supplier who was in dire straits in a lot of ways because restaurants are no longer buying. They're partnering with that organization and getting fresh produce directly to the steps of people in their community. It's a really interesting program. They're going to be here talking about how it's gone for them and how they set that up on Thursday. Friday, wrapping up our outreach week, we've got Oshkosh here with Katie Novak. So Katie Novak has Katie Novak Cooperative Coaching has been their campaign supporter and trainer. She'll be here talking with Brenda Haynes, the board chair of Oshkosh Food Co-op, about what it's been like. Now, they had raised most of their owner loan money before COVID-19 hit, but then it did, and they had to message in the middle of that saying, hey, we know you're really busy with all sorts of really incredibly important things, and we have to finish raising all this money. They did an incredible job messaging it, and they're going to be here sharing about it. And actually, as of right now, we're waiting for an announcement for how much they raised this weekend. They might have just gotten over the line. So we'll have them here Friday to talk about how the heck you're messaging, raising money in these kinds of times. So looking forward to that. Hope you'll all join us then. All right, everyone, have a great week. I hope to see you Wednesday. Thanks again, Jerry and team.
Awesome. Thank you.